Welcome back to the channel, and this week we're looking to continue the wildest sun run of our poker career.
If you guys didn't know already, in 2025 I'm trying to make at least $25 an hour while playing the same amount of hours at both 1-2 and 1-3. We got off to a horrible start, but I'm happy to announce that things have turned around.
From January 1st to February 5th, we were down $1,621 and experienced some of the worst bad beats of my life. I felt like I was playing pretty decent, but the cards weren't doing us any favors. If there's one thing I learned from my college baseball career, is that when things aren't going your way, but you keep putting in the work and keep a strong mindset, then things will always turn around. So I kept sticking to my game, and finally our results turned in the right direction. We went on an absolute tear and booked a win in 10 straight sessions. In that stretch, we played 26 hours and 40 minutes of live poker and profited $4,759 for a ridiculous hourly win rate of $178.46. We've not only ran pure, but pulled off some of the most insane bluffs of our life, so I'm happy where our game is at. Here's where our stats currently sit year to date going into the last week of March. Keep in mind these videos are a little behind because I took a 90-day break to avoid my channel getting terminated, so I'm catching you guys up. We've profited in 13 out of 18 sessions, played 52 hours and 5 minutes of live poker, and profited $3,138 for an insane hourly win rate of $60.25. Winning 10 sessions in a row obviously helps pad the stats, but I'll take it any way I could get it. So let's see if we could keep this insane sun run going and make it 11 wins in a row by heading out to the nicest card room in Northern California, which is none other than Stone's Gambling Hall. We buy into the 1-3 match stack game for $500, and our first interesting hand of the day occurs just a few minutes into the session. The player to my left limps in for $3, and I look down at the Cowboys, pocket kings. I make it $15 to go and get called from 3 players, including the player to my right. With $60 in the middle, we're going 4 ways to a really good flop of 10-5-4 rainbow, giving us the overpair. I start off with a standard half pot value bet of $30 and get called from the button and the player to my right. Pots now increase to $150, and we're going to an amazing turn card in the 5 of clubs, pairing the board. Everyone checks to me, and I don't think there's many 5s in our opponent's ranges, so a value bet is still in order. The obvious hands that stand out to me from our opponents are small pairs, 10x, or 7-6 for the straight draw. I don't think any of those holdings will call a big bet, and I don't want to scare anyone away, so I throw out a bet of $65 and just get called from the player to my right. Pot's now up to $280, and our opponent has just over $200 left in his stack, and I want it all. River peels off the jack of diamonds, and now our opponent decides to take the aggression in his own hands and leads out for $100 even. Folding is obviously out of the question, so should I call or raise? My original plan was to play for stacks on almost any river card, and the jack of diamonds shouldn't change too much besides give jack 10 2 pair, which we're beating. So I stick with the plan and go all in for his remaining stack of $101. He snap calls and rolls over pocket 4s for the full house. Looking back, I think calling is probably the best play because this is such an underbluff line, but I got greedy and wanted it all. Not the way you want to start off a session, but I'll never fault myself for playing aggressive. I add on $500 to my stack, and just a few minutes in, we're already into the game for $1,000 total. Next hand up, there's one limp, and I look down at pocket 7s. I raise the price of poker to $15, and action gets folded to the low jack, who now puts in a 3-bet to $50. Folds back to me. Since we're over $680 effective, this is an easy call. I put in the chips, and with $100 in the middle, the flop comes out King 8-3 rainbow, giving us third pair. I start off with a check, and surprisingly our opponent checks it back. Could be trapping with ace-king, kings, or aces, or this card could have scared him if he had a pair like pocket 10s or pocket jacks. Keeping that in mind, we go to a turn which peels off the king of hearts, pairing the king, making it less likely he has one. I don't think there's a point in betting because our opponent could still have a bigger pocket pair than ours, so I check, and to my surprise he checks it back again. Now I'm almost 100% certain we have the best hand because I thought pocket 9s through pocket queens would have put in a value bet on this turn card. Hoping for a blank, but the river peels off the queen of spades, downgrading our pair even more. I check for a third time, and now he throws out a super small bet of $25. This seems super value heavy to me, so I reluctantly fold and he rolls over ace-queen offsuit for the rivered pair. Definitely not the start I was hoping for, so now we have some work to do. For this one, action gets folded all the way to the button, who opens the action to $15. Folds to me in the big blind, and I look down at my favorite hand in poker, which is none other than Jack 10 suited. Could call in this spot, but I figure a button opening range is super wide and this is an easy hand to play post flop. So I put in the 3-bet to $45 and he quickly calls. Going heads up to a flop with $90 in the middle of 9-6-3 with one spade, giving us 2 overs and a ton of backdoor equity. Just like in the last video, I like betting small on the flop in 3-bet pots with both value and bluffs. So I throw out a c-bet of $30 with plans of overbetting the turn if a spade or a Broadway card hits. But unfortunately we don't get that opportunity because our opponent puts in a raise to 130, which forces me to fold. Unfortunate result, but I'm glad he let me off the hook by raising because I was committed to the triple barrel bluff. We have yet to win a hand this session, so I'm looking to turn that around. In this hand, the $6 button straddle is on. 2 people call the $6 before action's on me in the small blind, and I look down at my least favorite Broadway hand in King Jack offsuit. Could just call the extra $5, but I'm not trying to play this hand super multi-way out of position, so I raise it up to $36 and just get action from the cutoff. Going heads up to a flop of 10-9-3 with 2 diamonds, giving us 2 overcards and a gut shot to the nut straight. Decent flop to start a bluff with, so I throw out a standard bet of $35, and now our opponent min clicks me to 70. Not too sure what to make of this, but since I'm drawing to the nuts and I only have to call $35 more, I figure this is an easy call. I don't think he's ever doing this with a flush draw, and since I have the jack of diamonds in my hand, I'm going to use it to rep the flush if a diamond hits on the turn. Pots now increased to $220, and the turn gives us top pair second best kicker when it peels off the jack of spades. No point in betting, so I check and flow, and our opponent continues the aggression for $100. Even though we hit top pair, I'm a little concerned that I'm beat, but for this price, I think a call is still in order because my hand can still improve. So I put in the chips and see that 3 of clubs on the river, which I was a really big fan of. If our opponent had 10-9 for flop 2 pair, we're now beating him. I check once again, and he looks like he's debating to go all in, but eventually ends up checking it back. I turn over my hand expecting to be good sometimes given the action, but he rolls over my favorite hand in Jack 10 for turn 2 pair. Not the best run out and start to the session, but I'm just glad he didn't bomb that specific river because we might have had to make a hero call since the board paired. After a few more orbits of swinging and missing, our stack has taken quite the hit and it's down to $305, which means we're down $695 on the day. Early position opens the action to $18, cutoff calls, and I'm on the button and look down at the infamous ace-king offsuit. Since we're not super deep, and I only have around 100 big blinds, it's time to play for stacks. I put in the 3-bet to $90 expecting our opponent to either go all in or fold, but he ends up putting in the smooth call. Cutoff gets out of the way, and now we're going heads up to a flop in position with the most unpopular hand in low stakes poker. Flop doesn't give us any help when it comes out 8-7-3 rainbow, giving us just 2 overcards. There's $200 even in the pot, and I have $215 left in my stack, making things a bit awkward. I think if our opponent had queens, kings, or aces, he would have gone all in pre-flop, so I think his range is pocket 9s, 10s, and jacks, ace-10 suited, and ace-queen or ace-king offsuit. Since we have over a pot-sized bet left, I want to put max pressure on our opponent by going all in and putting him to the test. We fade the snap call, which is always nice, but after a little, he eventually ends up putting in the chips. Pots increase to $630, and we're hoping for an ace or a king. Turn 5 of diamonds doesn't help us improve, and river 5 of hearts leaves us here with just ace high. Our opponent rolls over pocket 10s for the overpair to the board, and we get scooped. Don't really see how I could have played that hand different, and we just lost the standard flip. I usually bring 3 bullets in my wallet, totaling up to $1,500, which is my stop loss amount, so I go on to add on my last bullet, but I guess I miscounted my money and only had $400 left. So I add on the money, and instead of being into the game for $1,500 like usual, I'm I'm now into the game for 1400, hoping to make a miracle comeback and somehow continue this winning streak. After just getting stacked, we immediately get involved in another hand, which is none other than the local famous $15 bomb pot. 6 people join the party, so there's exactly $90 in the pot, and we're on the button and get dealt Garrett Adelstein's favorite hand, Jack 4 offsuit. Flop comes out Jack 4-3 with 2 spades, giving us a very vulnerable top 2 pair. Same player who stacked us with pocket 10s earlier takes the betting lead and leads out for a pretty sizable bet of $50. Folds over to me. With flush and straight draws available, it's time to get value now. I raise the price of poker to $115, and action gets folded back to the player in middle position, and without much thought, he tosses his hand in the muck. I gave all the draws a decent price to continue, so he probably had a middling pocket pair or a weak jack. $1,400 in, and 2 hours later, we finally won our first pot of the day. Trying to build some momentum after winning the bomb pot, and what better way to do it than raising Queen Jack of Spades to $18 over a limp. Cutoff, who 3-bet me earlier in the session with Ace Queen offsuit when I had pocket 7s, 3-bets me again and makes it $50 to go. Folds back to me, and once again we have an easy defend. With $100 in the pot, the flop comes out 10-4-3 with 2 spades, giving us 2 overs and a flush draw. I start off with a check, and once again he checks back the flop. It seems like unless he hits his hand, he doesn't like c-betting, so I'm putting him on ace-jack up to ace-king offsuit and not a pair. So we go to a turn card and it peels off the deuce of clubs. My plan was to start a c-bet bluff, knowing all his ace-x hands won't fold the turn since they picked up a straight draw, so the goal is to double barrel the river unless a non-spade ace, king, queen, or 5 hits. So I start the semi-bluff off with a bet of $80, and as expected, he puts in the chips. Pot's now up to $260, and the river is amazing, and the king of spades giving us the second nut flush. I was not only a fan of this card because it gives us the flush, but ace king is a very likely holding. This player has been known to make light calls in the past, so I size up to $220 targeting ace king specifically, and he goes deep in the tank. I'm 100% confident I have the best hand, and now we're just hoping he puts in the chips. He says out loud how he should never be folding this hand, but ends up tossing ace-king offsuit in the muck face up, owning our soul. Our read was spot on, but I guess I should have bet smaller because that's a tragedy he ended up finding the fold with that hand. We missed out on some easy value, and it's hard to make an epic comeback when opponents make the correct folds. But I'm not giving up because another dealer change just happened, and we're back in for another local famous $15 bomb pot. Everyone at the table joined the party, so there's $135 in the pot and we get dealt 10-9 offsuit, going 9 ways to a flop of queen 9-7 with 2 diamonds giving us middle pair. Action gets checked to me. Since there's still people behind me left to act, I don't see the point in betting middle pair, so I check, and action gets checked through. Turn looks pretty good, and the 7 of clubs pairing the board, making it less likely anyone has one. Checks to me again. Now it's time to bet for value and protection. I figured a queen would have already been bet by someone, so I'm pretty confident we have the best hand. I throw out a bet of $50 and just get called from the player to my left. Pot's now up to $235, and there's a ton of draws available, so looking to fade a lot of cards on the river. River's one of those horrible cards when it peels off the 6 of diamonds, bringing in the front door flush and giving the straight to all the 10-8 combos. I check since betting doesn't accomplish anything, and now he throws out a super milky bet of $75. I don't see how I'm ever good here, so I fold, and he rolls over 7-6 offsuit for the rivered full house. What we thought was a horrible river card was actually an amazing one because our opponent already had us beat by the turn. I try to keep the action going and raise the stakes by throwing on the $6 under the gun straddle. Action folds all the way to the small blind who just calls the $6, and now the big blind raises to $20. I'm next to act and look down at ace-8 of spades. Against some players this is an easy 3-bet in position, but this specific player doesn't like to raise out of position with weak holdings, so I'm going to just proceed with caution and call. Small blind also calls the extra $14. We're going 3 ways to a flop and I'm somehow in position. Flop comes out queen 5 deuce with 1 spade, giving us just ace high with some backdoor opportunities. Surprisingly, the small blind takes the betting lead and throws out a super small bet of $15. Don't really know what to make of this just yet, but after the big blind calls, I feel like we have an easy call to see what develops and hope for a spade. Pot's now increased to $105, and the turn peels off the 3 of clubs, giving us a gut shot to the straight and not much else. Small blind continues the aggression, but throws out another small bet of $25, which felt super weak to me. Big blind just calls the 25, and at this point I figured they would be raising their strong hands and play for stacks. Whenever I sense a lot of weakness, I try to pounce, especially in position. Sitting here with just ace high in a dream, I raise the price of poker to $120, and the small blind snap folds, which we love to see. Big blind ends up going in a super long tank, which kind of threw me off, and after a full minute or so, she folds pocket tens face up. We get the best hand to fold. Everyone at the table was having a fun time, so I decided to keep the vibes going and show the bluff. After getting that bluff through, I got a quick confidence boost and was ready to pull off a miracle comeback. But unfortunately, that wasn't in the cards because we lost a few small pots over the next hour with pocket sixes, pocket nines, and 10-8 of spades. So let's get to the outro.
Unfortunately, all good things have to come to an end. Obviously didn't play our best today, but there was no way I was booking a win. In for 1,400 and out for 524 for our second biggest loss of the year of $876. Let's see if we could book a win tomorrow in our last session of March and start a new winning streak.
After a horrific start to the week, we're looking to change that around for day 2. The table has been super passive up to this point in the session, so after 2 people limp in middle position, I'm on the button and look down at queen 10 offsuit. I'm never just calling $3 with the Broadway hand in position, so I raise the price of poker to $15. Both players who put in the limp pre-flop put in the chips, so we're going 3 ways to a flop of 9-8-6 rainbow, giving us 2 overs and a gut shot to the nuts. First player checks, now the second player in middle position leads out for 27. Don't really know what to make of this line just yet, but since I'm drawing to the nuts and I don't have any flush draws to worry about, I decide to put in the call in position and look to either improve my hand or possibly steal this pot with a bluff in later streets. First player calls as well, so we're still going 3 ways to a turn and the pot is sitting at $125. Turn peels off the king of clubs, putting 2 clubs on the board, and now action gets checked to me. It's clear to me that this card scared both of our opponents because they checked super fast, so sitting here with just queen high, I'm going to try and steal the pot with the range advantage. I throw out a pretty sizable bet of $110, and the first player immediately gets out of the way. The second player puts in the call, increasing this pot to $345. In order to pull off a bluff, you have to try and range your opponent based off the line they took. This player let out on the flop and checked back the turn. If he had a set, straight, or 2 pair, I think he would still be betting the turn or at least implementing the check raise. So I'm taking all those hands out of his range, and to me his hand screams that he has a pair plus a straight draw. Something like 10-9, 9-7, 8-7, or 7-6. So in my head, I already determine if the board doesn't pair or there's not a one-liner to the straight, I'm going all in and hoping for max fold equity. The dealer throws out a river and puts out the 4 of clubs. I was pretty happy with this card because it doesn't improve the hands I mentioned previously. So after our opponent checks again, I'm sitting here with just queen high, and it's now time to put pressure on all those 1-pair holdings and go all in. Fortunately, our opponent snap calls, and I roll over the bluff. He turns over 5-3 of clubs for runner backdoor flush. He let out on the flop with complete air, but somehow got a miracle run out and scoops in this massive pot. I was actually pretty happy with how I played this hand because I trusted my read and went with it. In the past, I wouldn't follow through with these big bluffs and just give up by the river. That left me being such a face-up player and being easy to read. Hopefully by pulling off some of these big moves, I could get my street cred up and get paid in the future. After getting completely owned and left with $0 in chips, we add on another $500 bullet, and we're now into the game for $1,000 total. Just a few orbits go by after adding on to our stack when we get involved in another interesting spot. I throw on the $6 straddle and action gets folded all the way to the button who opens the action to $15. The big blind now puts in a 3-bet to $45. When it folds to me, I look down at pocket nines. The player on the button who opened to $15 has been opening a ton of hands in position and always defending against a 3-bet. The big blind player who 3-bet doesn't get out of line too often, so his range is most likely 10s plus or king queen plus. I could 4-bet and flip for stacks, but I figured the best play would be to cold call the 3-bet and bring him on the button because this would force the big blind to play his hand face up since I doubt he'd try to bluff two people with a hand like king queen on a low board. So I put in the $45 and so does the button, going 3 ways to a flop with $135 already in the middle of 10-9-3 with 2 hearts giving us middle set. Big blind starts off with a check. I think he'd c-bet all his overpairs, so I'm not too worried about him having us beat. Action's on me, and since this board is super connected, I think a chunky bet is in order. I throw out a bet of $75 targeting any 10, flush draw, or the million straight draws out there, but both players end up folding. A little disappointing to flop a set in a multi-way 3-bet pot and win the minimum, but anytime money is pushed in my direction, I'll never complain. The next hour was just unfortunate. I picked up a good amount of playable hands but lost every small pot I was involved in, so we're about 1.5 hours in and down over $630. Not where you want to be after a massive loss yesterday. In this next hand, I'm in the hijack and look down at ace queen of clubs. The table's been pretty passive, so instead of opening to my normal size of $15, I decide to open to just $12 since I'm in late position and want action. Just the button puts in the call, so we're going heads up to a flop of king queen 9 rainbow giving us middle pair best kicker. I start off with the standard bet of $15 and quickly puts in the call. Turn 8 of clubs shouldn't change anything unless he specifically had 9-8, so I decide to target worst queens or any 10x hand and bet $20. Our opponent quickly calls again, so now it's time to figure out his range. On this specific board, there isn't too many hands that can continue to a turn bet. The only hands that make sense are any king that we're behind of, weaker queen x, or a hand like ace jack or ace 10 that can improve to the nuts. I figure all his straights and 2 pairs would have raised by now, so all I'm worried about is him having a king. With $85 in the middle, we're going to a river which comes out the beautiful queen of diamonds giving us trips. Since we already figured out his range, it's time to figure out what size to use. A hand like ace jack or 10-9 is never calling a river bet here, so I think it's time to go for the overbet and target the top of his range. I've seen this player make super light calls this session, so I don't expect him to fold a king and definitely not a weaker queen. So I decide to size up and overbet the pot with a bet of $100. Fortunately, he ends up snap folding, so he must have had a hand like ace 10. Looking to build some momentum after that hand and pull off a miracle comeback, so what better way to do it than with the best hand ever created in pocket aces. Early position opens the action to $15, 2 people put in the call, now it's time to raise it up from the big blind. My standard 3-bet is 3x the original raise plus another multiplier for each caller. So I stick with the plan and make it $75 to go, expecting to get multi-way action, but everyone folds.
Look at all those chickens!
What's crazy about poker is over the last few weeks, I would have gotten at least 2 callers in this spot and won a massive pot. Variance is a real thing. It's not only based off of the runouts, but it's also about whether or not you get action. And so far, I've gotten action when I made a huge bluff, but when I flopped middle set and picked up aces, I've gotten 0. So hopefully this isn't a sign of how this session will end up and we could turn it around. In this next hand, I throw on the $6 button straddle to try and increase the stakes in position, and the low jack decides to open the action to $25. Folds over to me, and I look down at 6-4 spades. Only one play, which is to call and to defend my straddle. I put in the extra $19 and so does the small blind. Going 3 ways to a flop with $75 in the pot of king 8-3 all spades giving us the flush. Surprisingly, action gets checked to me, and I never slow play small flushes because there's so many turn cards that will kill your action and give you the losing hand. So I start off with a bet of $45 targeting high spades and king X hands. And to my surprise, the small blind decides to just go all in for his entire stack of 201. Original razor folds, and I obviously snap call. I turn over my hand like I always do when I'm all in. He shows ace king of hearts for top pair, top kicker. All we have to do is fade runner runner full house, and after the turn peels off the 4 of diamonds, we have him drawing dead and we win this pretty sizable pot. We're now only down around $300, so a comeback seems like a possibility. This next hand, I open queen jack offsuit to $15 in the low jack and get called from the cutoff and big blind. With $45 in the pot, the flop comes out 7-7 deuce with 2 spades, giving us absolutely nothing. Big blind checks it over, and since I have the queen of spades in my hand, I think we have a good hand to start a bluff with. On such a dry board, I'll always bet small with both value and bluffs, so I start off with a bet of $15 and just get called from the big blind. Can't really range them just yet since I bet so small, so let's go to a turn and see what develops. Pot's now increased to $75. The turn peels off the 5 of hearts, putting 2 flush draws on the board. He checks again. I think we still have a good bluff candidate. Front door flush didn't get there, and I want to continue repping that I have an overpair so we could start getting those small pocket pairs to fold. So I keep the aggression going and throw out a bet of $40. With zero hesitation, our opponent snap calls. I figured pocket 3s and pocket 4s wouldn't have snap called like that, so I'm most likely putting him on a draw at this point. I don't think there's too many straight draws that would have floated the flop. We could have a ton of spade draws and even heart draws that floated to my small sizing. So keeping that in mind, we go to a river which peels off one of the biggest blanks in the deck and the 3 of diamonds. Our opponent checks in flow for a 3rd time. Now it's decision time. Keep bluffing or give up. I would hate to check and lose to all his king high and ace high flush draws, so checking back never even crossed my mind. With $155 in the pot, I decided to throw out a bet of $85. My goal with this sizing was to get higher draws out of the way and put a hand like pocket 4s in a miserable spot. Our opponent goes in a super long tank, but eventually settles on a decision. He decides to put in the call. I proudly turn over my queen high. He rolls over ace king offsuit for just ace high. I was super surprised that he even showed up with that hand because I opened in late position and he somehow didn't 3-bet pre-flop. More power to him because he just won the max against my second failed triple barrel bluff of the day. Hate to end on that note, but unfortunately for us, that was our last interesting hand of the day, so let's get to the outro.
It's hard to book a win when your bluffs don't work and you get zero action with your monsters. In for 1,000 and out for 432 for a $568 loss.
I think it's safe to say the sun run has finally come to an end because this week we got smoked. We played a total of 5 hours and 45 minutes of 1-3 and lost a total of $1,444 for an hourly win rate of negative $251.13. Just an abysmal run of cards, but unfortunately it was bound to happen. Despite these 2 horrible sessions, the month of March was still something to celebrate. We profited in 3 out of 5 sessions and won $1,301 for an hourly win rate of $91.30. Pretty happy with how we played this month, despite only playing 14 hours and 15 minutes, but just working with what I got. As for our 2025 combined stats, we played 57 hours and 50 minutes of live poker and profited $1,694 for an hourly win rate of $29.29. Pretty happy with where we're at because we're 3 months into the year and above our goal of $25 an hour. Next video, I'll be hopping back in the 1-2 streets and starting the month of April with a clean slate. Hopefully we could get another winning streak going and increase our hourly win rate even more. Thanks for watching, and as always, I hope you guys rung it at the tables, and I'd appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button to help me reach my year-end goal of 20,000 subscribers.